Hello everyone, welcome to Super Coaching UPSC by Textbook. This is Venkatesh, your faculty for Geography. In the last week, I've started with World Mapping Series, where we have covered with America, North America and South America. It has got a tremendous response. You have seen the importance with respect to the questions which are asked in the UPSC prelims. So keeping that into consideration, today we'll be discussing about the same world geography concepts, the mapping concepts of the continent of Africa. Yes, the moment when I say Africa, everyone will remember about the terrain grassland, the grasslands, the tropical grasslands, the savannas, as visible in the picture, the wildlife, the giraffes, then the beautiful wildlife that is the base of Africa, isn't it? So let us discuss about all the major geographical mapping concepts of Africa, right? So without much wastage of time, let's start. So if you see the location of Africa, it is one of the continent which has all the three important latitudinal lines: equator, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, all are located in the same continent. You can see the equator, you can see the Tropic of Cancer, you can see the Tropic of Cancer, equator, as well as the Capricorn. So its extent, its vastness is a bit huge. Then, as you move forward, what you need to understand is the location, the size. If you see the African, it is the second largest continent. It is the second largest continent after Asia, covering about 1/5 of the total land surface of the earth. 1/5 of the total land surface. It has an area of almost around 30.3 million square kilometers, covering 60% of the 6% of the Earth's surface area. The total Earth surface area, it covers 6. When you compare with respect to the land, it will come around 20% of land area. So Africa, these kind of introductions are very useful whenever they ask you about certain questions from Africa, right? So, any further queries you have? Let me see some queries. Right. Okay. So, moving forward, often when you talk about the African continent, there is some kind of myths and confusions. Which is the southernmost tip? When you talk about the southernmost tip, many of you confuse with respect to that it is Cape of Good Hope, right? Many of you assume that Cape of Good Hope is the southernmost tip. No, it is Cape Agulhas. Cape Agulhas. The southernmost tip is Cape Agulhas. So many of you assume that the southernmost tip of Africa is the prominent, the famous Cape of Good Hope, but it is the Cape Agulhas which is regarded as the southernmost tip, which is eastern side of Cape of Good Hope. You can see this is Cape of Good Hope after the Cape Town, around the Cape Town, and this is the Cape Agulhas. This is the southernmost point. When you talk about African extent, you can see that it is surrounded by Mediterranean Sea in the north. You can see the Mediterranean Sea in the north. Then the Atlantic Ocean in the west, Indian Ocean in the east, as well as the east and the south, you can say so. When you talk about the regions, the corner here, this is the Red Sea, this is the Gulf of Aden. And one important aspect about Africa, which you need to remember, a certain part of Africa also lies in Asia. That is the country of Egypt. Egypt, which is here, Egypt. There is a peninsula here called as Sinai Peninsula. Okay, this is the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, this Sinai Peninsula, that is This is the Red Sea. We have the Suez Canal here. This is the Suez Canal. And after that, a part of this peninsula, we call it as what? Sinai Peninsula. It is part of the Egypt, and it is actually part of the, geographically it is located in Asia, or you can say that Asia and Africa are separated by Sinai Peninsula. In fact, when you talk about the geopolitical concerns here, the prominent war between Israel and Egypt happened in 1967 around the same region with the Sinai Peninsula, the famous 6-day war, which they call, right? So it has some historical baggage as well. So Sinai Peninsula is a very, very prominent place. And recently, with respect to the Gaza Strip, the conflict with respect to Israel and all, you can see the linkages with Egypt. So that's where these points becomes very, very important. Then moving forward, if you see about Africa, the further things which you also need to know. So Africa or Asia, Sinai Peninsula, it is Asia. So it is the boundary between Africa and Asia is what we can say. Technically, if you want to exact answer, it should be Asia, right? But culturally, it is more with Egypt. So it can be considered as African continent only. So that is why prominent geographers, now they call Sinai Peninsula is between Africa and Asia. Then moving forward, when you talk about the mountains, the physical map of Africa, anytime whenever you discuss about certain things of physical things of a certain country, you always discuss about the mountains, the plateaus, the plains. Can any one of you tell me the mountains located in Africa? Anyone? Let me see the comments. Come on, mention in the comments here. Anyone? The mountains. Can you mention? Yes, okay. So if you see here, right in the northwest corner, you have mountains called as Atlas Mountains. Very easy to remember, isn't it? Atlas Mountains. So these are what you call it as the Atlas Mountains. So northwest corner of Africa, we have the Atlas Mountains. Yes, Gayatri, Atlas Mountains. So this is the thing, Atlas Mountains. Now, in fact, when you talk about Africa as a thing, though there are some kind of mountain systems here, the number of mountains, when you talk about such a vast continent, and if you see from the mountains point of view, you don't have much amount of a range of mountains. Yes, another important volcano which you can remember, it is Mount Kilimanjaro. Yes, Fatima. Yes, Kilimanjaro is one important volcano that is also there. You can discuss about here in the regions of the Lake Victoria, Tanzania. You find the Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest point of Africa. Here it is, Mount Kilimanjaro, 5,895 meters, highest point of Africa. So when you talk about these things, Atlas Mountains and all, what I'm trying to tell you here is a continuous range of mountain, like you find the Andes Mountains, like you find the Rockies, the Himalayas. You don't find such kind of things here. Very, very few. Atlas is one mountain, and there is another mountain chain to a certain extent. Some people even don't call this as, but Drakensberg. What is this? Drakensberg. So Drakensberg Mountains, or some people even call it as escarpments. It is part of this. Then when you talk about the plateau, one of the famous plateau which you have here as part of Africa is the Katanga Plateau, known for minerals. Katanga Plateau, known for the minerals. Yes, you have some Ethiopian highlands here, right? Kenya is also located slightly on the higher elevation side. You can talk about that Kenyan region as a part of a plateau. You can talk about the Adamawa highlands here. the Air Plateau, Tibesti Plateau here. But mostly, if you talk about the height here in terms of the physical importance of any kind of a physical region here, Katanga Plateau is one of the prominent one known for minerals. So remember about the Katanga Plateau, the minerals. So this is about the physical aspects of what you say, the plateaus as well as the mountains. Then when you talk about the islands, you all remember these islands called Canary Islands. Have you heard some kind of thing, Canary? Where do you hear? Have you heard something about Canary Islands? In one of the geographical concept, you hear about Canary. Did you? Anyone? Yes, Gayatri, Fatima, can you tell me? Can you tell me where you find the Canary, the word Canary Islands? You have associated with one of the geographical concept. Do you remember? No? Ocean currents. Canary's cold current. Canary's is a cold current, right? Canary current. The name Canary current has originated with respect to the islands here, where you have the Canary Islands. So Canary Islands, part of the cold oceanic current, which is leading to the formation, one of the reason for formation of the desert of Sahara, right? Then similarly, another prominent island of Africa we all know it, Madagascar, right? Madagascar is one. Madagascar is one which is an important island on the eastern coast of Africa. Eastern coast, Madagascar, Canary Island on the west here. So this would be the Canary Islands. Then you also have some more islands, some prominent ones, not that much, but Canary Islands is one. Then when you talk about here, there would be some kind of Zanzibar Islands. Zanzibar Islands, Zanzibar, a famous tourist resort, Zanzibar. That is one side of a place. Then when you talk about Africa, one important thing which you also need to remember is the Horn of Africa. You can see here, this one, right? This is the Horn of Africa, which is geographically very important in the present era in terms of the concerns with respect to geopolitical concerns, the ships which are traveling from the Indian Ocean into the Red Sea and all, the Horn of Africa, the Somalian Peninsula. Here you also have a country by name Djibouti. Djibouti here, right? Somalia here. And you have here the Babel Mandab Strait. Babel Mandab Strait. This becomes very, very important, what do you say, mapping point of view of Africa, which have a huge relevance. The Babel Mandab Strait, Djibouti, Somalia, and all such kind of things. That is one you need to remember. Then further, another important thing which you can remember about the African thing. Let us go to the next concept now. We have discussed about the islands. We have discussed about some of the major mountain systems and all. And here I have identified around some important plateaus. As I told you here, same Katanga Plateau, this is one. Let me show in the color. Katanga Plateau. Kilimanjaro, part of Tanzania, happens to be the volcanic mountain, Tanzania. Then I have discussed about this is the Great African Rift Valley. Great African Rift Valley, where you find the lakes. We'll discuss about the lakes in detail as well. So Rift Valley. So all these are things. Then moving further, you can talk about further about the, if you talk about the vegetation, you can see the map vegetation clearly. We have the Congo or the Amazon basin, Congo basin, almost along the equator after the Amazon basin of South America. You can see the Congo basin here, Congo basin, Zaire basin, right? These are the mighty Saharan desert, the mighty Saharan desert, and at the transitions, these are the transitions of what? Between the mighty Saharan desert and the African, what do you say? The African equatorial forest. You have the transitions of what? Can you mention this? Anyone? Can you mention what are the transitions between the African equatorial forest and the Saharan desert? You find the mighty tropical savannas, the tropical grasslands. These are the centers of wildlife. The moment when I say Africa, you talk about wildlife, right? When you talk about Africa, it is always what you talk about. You talk about the wildlife. You talk about the things of the lions, cheetahs, the hyenas, the wild elephant, the elephants, right? Recently, we also have bought some kind of relocation of what? Cheetahs, right? Namibian cheetahs. So here, just like you heard it, you also have another desert here. You have the Namibian desert and the Kalahari desert. And once again, at the transitions, these are the transitional areas of, once again, the grasslands. So be it the grasslands here, be it the grasslands here, they are very, very famous for the wildlife. In fact, one such important wildlife area, which is located at the boundary of Kenya and Tanzania, okay, there is a national park called Serengeti National Park. Serengeti National Park, right? Serengeti National Park, right? Then moving further, and some of the highest point here, highest point, Mount Kilimanjaro is a dormant volcano located in Kilimanjaro region of Tanzania. So where it is located? What is the highest point? Such kind of questions can also be asked. Yes, Sachin, you are right. Savannah region. Sahel region is a different one. It's a dry land region, part of the desert. So maybe you are there in the question where I was asking about the transitions. This would be the Sahel region. Yes, it can also be part of certain grasslands, but generally you can have a mix. We will discuss about the Sahel region later on. So when you talk about the Kilimanjaro, it is a dormant volcano. We don't find much kind of eruption in the present era. You will see that it has 3 volcanic cones, Kibo, Mawenzi and Shira. Whatever, what you need to remember is Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, highest point. What is the height? 5,895 meters. See, if they might ask you, Mount Aconcagua, right? What is the highest, which is the highest point of which region? Aconcagua. Which continent? Mount Aconcagua, Mount Kilimanjaro. Similarly, we have discussed about even in North America, we have discussed about the highest points. Can you name them? We discussed in the last class. They might ask you with match the following with respect to continent and the highest point. They might also ask you about sometimes arrange the following highest points of the continents in terms of height from lowest to the highest or from highest to lowest. They can also ask such kind of questions, right? So anyhow, simply remember Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, highest point, less than 6,000 meters, very near to it. Then, when you talk about rivers of Africa, it is not like whenever you study about rivers and other things associated with world maps, concepts and all, it is not like you are supposed to study about every river which is mentioned of the particular continent. Maybe prominent rivers which have some significance and the rivers which flow, which are clearly visible on a African continent map like this, are the ones you can prepare. For example, you all know that Just like South America, when you have discussed about river of South America, the first major river we'll always remember is about Amazon. Similarly, when you say about Africa, African rivers are not ending unless and until we discuss about river. Which river? River Nile. So Nile River is part of which continent? We all know it. It drains into Atlantic Ocean, it drains into the Indian Ocean or in the Mediterranean Sea. You have to remember that. So it starts from part of the Lake Victoria. Blue Nile joins here and moves as part of the Egypt and moves towards the Mediterranean Sea. So River Nile becomes very, very important. And its mouth, they might ask you, which of the following major rivers of Africa drain into Mediterranean Sea? There is one prominent river like Nile, remaining all are not draining. Similarly, another prominent river you have, River Congo, cuts across equator twice. That is the uniqueness of Congo. So let us understand about certain things. We can start with River Congo, Congo or Zaire. Almost you see the length 4,800 kilometers, almost double of our mighty Ganga. Such a huge river. It is the second longest river in Africa and the deepest river. Starts from the southwest lake of Lake Tanganyika. Lake Tanganyika start from the southwest of Lake Tanganyika and flows into Atlantic Ocean. The significance which you need to remember about Congo is it cuts across the equator twice. So you can talk about the equator. It cuts across twice. So as it is moving, it is cutting across twice. So this is the important point. Similarly, you have River Mahi in India, isn't it? It cuts across Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer twice in India, just like that. Then another river, River Zambezi, flows into the Indian Ocean, which is famous for Victoria Falls. So Victoria Falls, Zambezi River. That what you can remember. You can see here River Zambezi, which is mentioned here. This is the Zambezi River. Right. Then the famous Nile River. When you talk about the Nile River, flows from south to north. From the south towards the north, you can see the Lake Victoria, the Blue Nile River, the White Nile and the Blue Nile together forming the actual Nile. It begins in the river that flow into Lake Victoria and then empties into the Mediterranean Sea. And one important thing about River Nile is it is regarded as a river which has helped Egypt not turn into a desert. So the agriculture, the ancient civilization of Egypt is all with respect to the thanks to the resources and the water availability of the river Nile. So that is the prominent point I want you to remember. See, once they have asked a question UPSC, they asked which of the following rivers drain into Atlantic Ocean, drain into things. You can see one river, River Orange, it drains into the Atlantic Ocean. So they might ask you certain questions where the rivers are draining into which ocean, so that at least the rivers which are shown clearly on the physical map of the continent are clearly understood to you. Not going deeper about all the rivers of Africa. That is difficult. Unless and until there is a significant current affairs event which has become limelight, got into the news like anything, you are not supposed to remember about all the lakes and the rivers of Africa. Got it, all of you? Sachin, clear? Fatima, Gayatri, am I clear? Am I clear on this part? Right. That's good. Then moving forward, the lakes. The lakes. So you all know that there is a rift line, a fault line which is moving across these lands as part of the plate tectonics. In the future, there is a possibility that along the fault line of these lakes, there is a possibility that Africa could be separated from the mainland and it will turn into a pure island. It is a possibility. It is a possibility, it doesn't mean it is happening tomorrow or a day after tomorrow. It will take so many years, so many millions of years, millions of years. Remember, we used to study Indian continent as part of the Gondwana land, part in the southern hemisphere, then came all the way, Himalayas were formed. Maybe in that way, you will discuss about this later on. So, along this Rift Valley, you will find the popular lakes. So, you need to remember the lakes like Lake Victoria, Lake Victoria, okay. Lake Victoria is one, Lake Tanganyika is one. You see the broad lake, these are the Great Lakes, Lake Kivu, Lake Edward, but mostly remember about Lake Victoria, Lake Tanganyika, and Lake Malawi, which are one of the prominent lakes. There are so many lakes here, Lake Bangwilu, Lake Viru, so many varieties, but at least remember about the Victorian Lake and the Tanganyika Lake. So Victorian Lake almost at the boundary with respect to Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, very prominent lake here. So such kind of questions they do ask about the Great Lakes. Then moving forward, yes, the Sahel region, one of the ecologically biodiverse region, known for droughts, known for the concerns with respect to even what do you say, food concerns and all such challenges, right? Droughts and all, Sahel region. So this is the Sahel region, one of the prominent one. And there is one country which you need to remember here, Burkina Faso. Have you heard this country? Burkina Faso. Yes, Lamia, Lake Chad is one. Yes. Lake Chad. Right. So, Burkina Faso, you know what is the significance? The 0-degree longitudinal line, 0-degree longitude passes through Burkina Faso. This is one such important point you can remember. Burkina Faso, 0-degree longitudinal line. That is about the African continent as such. And one more point I need to mention to you. Let me take back. Yes. Okay. So when you talk about the recent era, recently around this region, right? Around this region, there were around some kind of protests which happened in the regions of very near to this region, around Ethiopia and all these regions. There were some famines. There were some talk about famines and issues associated with it. We need to discuss such kind of things. Sometimes they might ask you, right? So there were some kind of a talks. So recent in the current affairs, there were some famines which were reported in the regions of Ethiopia and all these regions. Can you note down, can you give me such kind of point, the city which was in news? If not, I will mention, don't worry. You go and try to tell me. It happened only in the last month itself. So that is the reason why I am asking you to tell. If you cannot tell, then anyhow, I'll put it in the comment section after that session. Okay? Right. Then moving forward, one more thing you can remember about, even about the minerals. You know, Africa is known for resources. The next era belongs to the African, after the, as the Asia peaks about the development and all, after 20 years from now, from 2040-50, the world will start talks about the development of Africa. So minerals, which they have vast resources, there is significant talk about the utility of those minerals, be it the copper of the Conga Basin around the Katanga Plateau, copper and all such things, be it the diamonds of Africa. In fact, they are very prominent with respect to the things, the diamonds, the oil available in the northern part, the Libya and all, the Libya oil, the copper here and diamonds here are some of the prominent minerals which are available in the African continent. I hope you all have, this is about the African continent. I hope you all have understood the approach and the famous most important points which I need to discuss about any kind of a continent, right? Just like this, do you want me to continue about Asia as well as even Europe? So that we will continue, we'll complete the entire series of world mapping series, right? And if you want the PDF file of this, you can get into the Telegram channel, you can get that. Maybe in the next week, we'll complete with respect to the remaining portions of mapping. Until then, happy learnings. Take care, all of you. If you want the PDF file of this discussion, you can get it from the Telegram channel. Thank you very much. Happy learnings. Jai Hind.